Welcome to episode 24 of Rogue Mode 0 to 40 in Flight of Nova. We are at Rogue Mode grade 33. We are on a land base in the Calum EX5. I'm having sweet tea from the tub. A nice savor. Way too far for that. Way too far. Here's a closer one, but we're in the wrong ship. Here's a 5 bar, but it's platinum. We can make this flight 7,000 kilometers. And it's timed, so we can only really make this flight for a period of time. It might be better to find a freighter when we get over there, though. So we'll accept that mission. We're gonna go for the flight. So 7,000 kilometers is quite a long trip. We're gonna go for our, what I like to call, ultrasonic flight. I want to define an ultrasonic flight as one that is in atmosphere, but at a superorbital velocity. So I'm calling it superorbital because it's greater than orbital velocity. So I don't know if that's really the right way to think of it. It's also a super circular velocity. So we're getting a little high right now, but I'm gonna try to have it fly down through the atmosphere. Try to maintain a particular altitude between 60 and 80 kilometers. Probably trying to be more like around 60. And what we want to do we're going to get a really high velocity here, and then we're just going to glide. We're going to use trim, and what we're going to try to do is we're going to try to use lift to keep us down in the atmosphere. So actually trim isn't going to work. So you see here that my FPA is not increasing that much, and if I pull up, then the FPA doesn't really increase. Matter of fact, it's decreasing. So I want to let the FPA increase a little bit up to more like a 0. I don't want to change altitude at all. And then I want to pull up at a rate where my FPA does not change from 0. And so if I'm not lifting at all, then my FPA will increase because I'm going to start flying out of the atmosphere. I'll be moving away from the planet. Right now I'm moving perfectly horizontal onto the planet's surface. As long as my FPA is 0, I'm flying perfectly vertical, perfectly horizontal to the planet's surface. But because I'm flying faster than circular orbit at this altitude, then I'll actually start flinging out into space, and as the ground is more round and my trajectory keeps going out, then my FPA will increase as my trajectory takes me farther away from the planet. So the FPA is like the angle relative to the ground. So right now it's 0.22 degrees. That means that that's my trajectory angle, not my ship's attitude angle. So right now I'm traveling slightly angled up away from the ground because my FPA is positive. So if my FPA is 0, then I'm moving perfectly horizontal to the ground. So I can set trim, so now I'm pulled up. And at this velocity, I can actually reduce my trim a little bit. I need to reduce it more. Reduce it a little more. Reduce it a little more. All right, now we're going in the right direction. Now we're going to be approaching back to 0 because you can see the ring there in the middle of my console. The white ring is bigger than the blue ring. The white ring is my orbital trajectory. And my apoapsis is still over 6,000 kilometers. So if I wasn't lifting to pull down against the planet, then I would just get flying out into space. So I was thinking, well, superorbital velocity doesn't make sense because that could apply to any orbital velocity that is out of the atmosphere, basically. But I would say that, technically speaking, superorbital just means that it's greater than the minimum velocity required for orbit. So superorbital velocity doesn't have that much meaning until you consider my altitude. And because of my altitude being 65 kilometers, so I'm well within the atmosphere, now superorbital velocity becomes a significant term. It has meaning. So what I'm trying to do is I'm coining the term for my own usage. Obviously, you can coin terms that you're going to use just by saying them. That right now this is an ultrasonic flight. And where that's different from a hypersonic flight in my usage is that this flight is an atmospheric flight at superorbital velocity. whereas a hypersonic flight is still a suborbital velocity. So you would argue that while there's a small portion of space vehicles flight that could be considered ultrasonic, and you could probably argue that, but I would argue that that's not an ultrasonic flight, because this flight is a flight that is taking place on a path at this altitude. The whole flight goes like this, so you might call it like an ultrasonic phase of a launch, but you probably wouldn't want to necessarily call it an ultrasonic flight if it's only going to be blasting. More like, that would be more like a ballistic launch. You would call that like if a rocket is launching, then it's more of a ballistic launch. So even though you fly through the atmosphere potentially at a superorbital velocity, actually most rockets don't do that. Intercontinental ballistic missiles don't really fly through the atmosphere at a superorbital velocity either, for the most part. They reach orbit, and then they do a small deorbiting burn in order to go on to a re-entry path. And for that re-entry, they're already at a suborbital, or shortly after entering the atmosphere, they become suborbital velocity. So that probably wouldn't be a ultrasonic flight either, although with the new hypersonic missiles that are coming out, perhaps some of those are entering into that field of where it's special and different than most hypersonic flights, because they are traveling at a velocity that would see them fling out into an orbital trajectory if they did not actively find some way to thrust themselves down into the atmosphere, either using an engine or with using wings and lift to keep them at the same altitude. So right now, I'm still really moving fast. This is according to this, it's a Mach 20 flight right now. So I'm still moving Mach 20, but this is technically a suborbital velocity. So now I'm in the hypersonic flight phase of my ultrasonic flight. But because it was an ultrasonic flight, you would still call this the tail end of an ultrasonic flight. Maybe. You might do that. You might make the two distinct. Also, I think that 60 kilometers altitude might be a little high for air-breathing engines, most of the air-breathing engines. I mean, certainly Mach 20 is a little fast for most of the air-breathing engines to work. But maybe even 60 kilometers altitude, the air is just not really thick enough. So this is really the domain of rockets anyway. So, I wonder when I should start looking for a freighter. I would hate to get there and find out I need to fly 500 kilometers just to find one. There's no reasonable way for me to search one around the target destination. this is going to an air barge. So I actually have no idea. Where we're even going right now. Negative 6.6. No, that's my latitude. Oh yeah, it doesn't even say it. All I really know is I'm going 800 kilometers. Still yet. So you might be thinking, wow, this vehicle, that seems a little bit sci-fi. Could we ever make a vehicle that moves like that? Well, you're probably right, probably not. But I do believe that Flight of Nova actually stands for, there was a game called Escape Velocity Nova. I'm just making this up. The developer didn't make any comments anywhere that I saw that suggest this, but there was a game called Escape Velocity Nova. It was a space trading game, and it was a two-dimensional, like, flying asteroid, and you would just basically jump from one system to the next and carry passengers or something like that, and do map missions. Well, I think that the idea here is that you're trying to simulate what it would really be like to be the pilot flying those ships from that game. Escape Velocity Nova. So it's not trying to be fully realistic. It's trying to give more realistic activities to the player who wants to play, but that spaceship sure is badass, just the same. So there's a real big challenge trying to justify this kind of fuel consumption, or this kind of engine power at this amount of fuel mass. But we are using orbital mechanics in the game, and there's an atmosphere with density that changes, and there's gravity, and it's really interesting because although some things are just, there's no way to justify that with realism right now, not at the current information available to such as myself anyways. I mean, just how could you ever justify this amount of energy as it would take for, you know, I'm sitting in the cockpit where you can see where that is. You know, this thing is not that big. Alright, we're gonna have to go to this land base and hope for a freighter. ...244 kilometers. Okay. Where is that? We need to go get that. That is the freighter. Trim anymore. have 200 kilometers of fuel. Oh yeah. Easy. Easy. See, now this flight right here would be a big rocket. It'd be like a Falcon 9 probably. Probably wouldn't have to be a Falcon 9. But this would be a perfectly doable flight with today's technology. A couple hundred kilometers. What did that take me? 2 minutes? LA to San Francisco in 5 minutes. That could really happen. That might be the real application of all these rockets. People want to fly from New York to Moscow, but which would be great. But who needs to fly from New York to Moscow? You know, but on the other hand, a lot of people would want to be able to fly several hundred kilometers in a few minutes, because, for example, tradesmen, well, there needs to be a lot of tradesmen, but trades get pretty specific. People get really specialized at something that has to be done with them using tools right there on the spot. So, you know, you're talking about a little cheap house. Yeah, sure, you can have local electricians that do that. But you start talking about more complicated infrastructure, pretty soon the technician, you know, they want to be available over a pretty large area, because there isn't that much work. But when there's work, it's pretty high skilled. So there aren't that many people who can really be the ones who learn how to do it. So for certain, you know, some construction, regular construction, big buildings, there might get to be where these people, you know, there aren't that many of them, and we need them to be able to travel quickly. So then at that point, you might really be justified in using a whole big rocket so that somebody can get to work, you know, saving a 6-hour drive, you know, doing the whole trip in 10 minutes. I mean, it's not like they have to fly underneath a hovering cargo ship and land on a suspended landing pad underneath of it. That takes extra time, you know. they want to go home at the end of the day, you know, every day. So you can't have them moving over all the way over there. They need a regular commute. They need to do it in a commute. All right, we need to reach Alk Team. Alk Team is on the other side of the planet. So we're just going to go ahead and find ourselves the very nearest landing pad that's on a landing base so that we can get a launch window. Let's use this elevator. Crash. This thing really doesn't have that much power. Alk Team is a 755 station. This is a vintage station. It's from before the giant space stations were added, so it's not a very particularly large station. It will have an available docking port, where we can go to the docking port first before dropping our cargo at the docking pad, which is what I like to do, to always make sure I'm practicing my docking ports. Oh no, we're behind schedule. Because we're riding the elevator instead of departing now. We're at -0.6, so we are also needing to travel north on a dogleg. So I think what that means is that we travel more vertically than 50 degrees. So we're gonna go east. We're gonna go east and northeast. And I think what that means is that we travel, so we go a little bit more vertically. And that will get us to the altitude more quickly. And it's less efficient, because we need to burn harder when we get there. And we're burning just as hard to get up there in the first place. There goes mine A41. Alright, So now we're gonna burn out Apoapsis, still up to the same altitude, 755. But we will arrive at 755 in less distance because of our steeper incline. And that means that we will travel there slightly less time. I could be backwards on that though. There goes Da Costa. Oh man, we're missing Da Costa. You can never see Da Costa when we get close to it either. We're now passing the altitude of Da Costa. It's a very small station, so it's hard to see. Oh, we didn't even see it cross the blue line. Too small. So for dinner, I got some lentils soaking. I'm gonna put some noodles in there. I'm gonna put some chicken. And I'm gonna put some collard greens, all in the rice cooker. By the time the noodles are ready, I'm hoping the lentils will cook. That's why I'm soaking them. Because normally, why would you bother soaking a lentil? And everything will just cook together all at once. Probably with some black pepper. And hopefully I'll get some breakfast out of that too. Alright, we went a little bit too far to the north. I wasn't paying attention to my inclination. So we're gonna have to burn back south a little bit. So first we'll kill our inclination to 0. We don't need anywhere near that inclination. We're at 430, we still have 300 kilometers to go. So I'll go with an inclination of -1. And hopefully that'll be close enough for us to be nice and happy chasing down that station. Which is approaching rapidly. Approaching 600 kilometers altitude. .1 latitude. Not that much farther before we're at 0 latitude. Zero latitude, so now we're gonna kill our inclination and burn north. Just that little bit. Get lined up for our circularization and rendezvous. And we may need to burn at an early altitude, I'm not sure. Or we may actually be loitering just a tiny little bit, I'm not sure. It looks like we might be right on time. Alright, we're gonna go early. Alright, we're gonna go now. we're a little bit ahead of schedule, but we're a little bit low in the altitude. I would have wanted to be closer to 750 by now. Alright, let's get lined up here for a rendezvous burn. Our approach is looking pretty good from where I last looked at it. We're at about 1 kilometer per second to shed, but we are laden with some freight, so I'm probably going to want to go around. I'm going to go now. Chill out. Alright, I'm gonna go here in a second. Alright, we have a good approach. We'll just get ready for our cancel burn. Got a couple of kilometers to float, but nothing major. Nothing worth burning about. And then we're going to find ourselves a docking port. And there should be at least one available on Al Khartoum. I think that we are going to be going down to the bottom over there. That little nubbin that we see is a non-active docking port, used only by them little ship drones.
TL-01 craft, station Al Khartoum. You are all set to dock. Docking Bay 1.
Here comes 34. Norvig is a fixed distance away at 3,000 kilometers. Norvig is a fixed distance away at 3,000 kilometers. Who's close? Da Costa. There's no Da Costa missions. Da Costa is sadly underserviced with missions. My 4 is a little further away. It looks like we're really out of options here. Let's see what we got going on. Could go to Norvig. It's really looking like our best option is just to go to Norvig. 3,000 kilometers away. Drifting cargo. That's right here. Well, I tried to grab that thing in third person, but I just didn't see how that was going to work. Oh, that was really good. That put us all the way to 36. Looks like. But, alas, we look up here that we need to go to Norvig. So where is Norvig? 35. Only 5 more levels to go. There's Norvig. Alright, here we go. 3,000 kilometers, baby. Alright, so probably need to worry about our inclination there. We want a nice 0 inclination. Then we need to boost, but we need to watch our periapsis. We want our periapsis to go down, but not below a point. But we want it to go down a lot. Quite a ways to go. That means, and we're chasing it in orbit. Let's put our periapsis down here, like, let's go right about here. Let's go right about here. That'll almost skim the Earth, or the Norvig. And we'll see. I don't know if we need to burn a little more or not. We're moving pretty quick at this point. 14.3 kms. We got still a good couple hundred kilometers to lose altitude, and then we're still going to climb altitude before we get out to 758. So we got to go all the way down and then all the way back up again. I think we might catch them before that. Which is what anywhere underneath here is good. Because then when you hit the brakes, and then it's easy to just float out. I mean, there's probably a most efficient way to do things, but we are not concerned with efficiency. We are, however, concerned with our inclination. So I don't know if this is the correct. Oh yeah. So let's fix this inclination. All right. So let's see where we get to by the time we get down to 130 periapsis. I mean, we could periapsis all the way down at like 100 and we'd be just fine. Going 14.5, 6, 7, we're going almost 7 kilometers per second towards Norvig 758. So we have 2,000 kilometers to go. That's about 3 minutes, huh? 300 seconds. It's about 5 minutes. Wouldn't be that much different for us to just go ahead and catch Da Costa. Alright, we are now at our periempsis, 130.3 kilometers. Now we're going to start creeping up. There we are. You can see our FPAs actually went to 0 there for a second, and now it's moving up. So we were at a negative FPA while we were heading down in altitude, and a positive FPA means that we'll be increasing our altitude. So our altitude will climb faster as our FPA goes up. So that's why it's hard to say exactly how well we got lined up here. We're only 1,000 kilometers away from Norvig at the moment, though. We're going 14.5 kilometers per second, which will start to slow down a little bit as we raise in altitude, because gravity is going to slow us down. Maybe this time we'll get to see Da Costa. I think we're still too far away. That's a little tiny space station. But it's going to be right down there in front of that. Oh, we can see it. There it is.
01, Da Costa Station. Good to see you. We have you on approach.
There it is. That never happens. Alright, we're at 220 kilometers. Alright, we need to start hitting the brakes. Alright, we're going really fast, and we're really only a couple hundred kilometers behind Norvig. Ahead of Norvig, behind Norvig. So now we want to hit those brakes. We don't want to lower our altitude. We want to raise our altitude, but we do want to not be moving west or east any more than Norvig is. And we just kind of want to come straight up at it. Yeah, so we want to be increasing our FPA. This window method, and when it's no longer, alright, now we're gonna go there. Alright, now we just need to climb, and now we're still going really fast. So we need to start worrying about our next burn here in at about 200 kilometers, I'd say. Yeah, we'll go for that. Alright, now we're gonna circularize, basically. That's what we're trying to do now. We're trying to rendezvous, match that altitude, circularize. Norvig is not Da Costa. Norvig is absolutely enormous. Da Costa should be docking in Norvig.
Can you read me?
Alright, here we go. We're going to go to a dock port, and from that dock port we will accept the freighter mission. now we need to find a dock port. Kind of want to see if I can learn where these things are on this station. I think there's one right there. Alright. I'm really blasting. Hopefully I can get lined up here and I'm not too far gone. Are those habitation modules or are those cargo containers? Huh? Look like cargo containers from the Expanse. Dockport 22, here we come. Now we will accept the mission. Accept the mission. Well, we got water and platinum. They look about the same. But platinum is older mission. So we will accept the platinum mission. We will find ourselves a dock port. A dock pad. Alright, how are we gonna get there? We're gonna go this way. Sector 84. 7593, 7610. Alright, we're going around the planet for that. Let's see here. Da Costa's only 500 kilometers away. Why stay here when we can go to a more ideal re-entry phenomenon? Where's Da Costa? I know it's close. Oh my goodness, there it is right there. We're going to Da Costa. Once we get to Da Costa, we'll dock there and we'll time skip there. And although this will take elapsed game player time for me to make this trip, Da Costa will actually get there quicker than this station because at a lower altitude, it covers less distance and moves faster. Alright, so we're going to give ourselves negative 15 FPA at least. And we're going to have to be pushing east a little bit while we do that. Alright, I think I'm happy with that right there. Alright, and we are going to allow ourselves to lose altitude. What's our FPA? Minus 12. Yeah. We're gonna go faster. There's our minus 15 FPA. This some more. Okay. I do think we are ahead. Let's see what we got going on here. 1.5 kilometers out of 185. We're talking about a long trip. Let's go faster. I mean, are we going or what? 2 kilometers per second. That's about 70 seconds. That's good right there. One more little attempt at this, but then we gotta start hitting the brakes pretty quick. Alright, we're flying pretty much right at it. Good enough. Let's find our anti-local. We're going to be having a long burn. We're going to get it started.
TL01 craft. Now. The station. Welcome. We have you on screen.
And now we'll just make sure that we stay on that anti-local until we're confident about where we're going. Until we're nice and... Oh, speed wobble. That's my cargo container messing up my estimate. So you don't really want to speed wobble down to the planet. Should have just let that one float for a couple minutes. Alright, there we go. Orbital velocity. Da Costa Station. There's our dock port. There's an alternate freighter, however it does not have our cargo. Dr. Da Costa. Re-entry window for sector 84. And now we just wait for the re-entry window. We don't try to figure no 5,000 kilometers. We don't try to reach no negative 15 FPA and wait. See what happens. We already know this one. You time before departure, you minus 10 FPA until you minus 5.5 FPA, and you let it flow down in. Real easy. That'll be calling it for the mission too. It looks like we've been on this mission for about 1 hour and 16 minutes. So by the time we land, it'll be good for the end of episode 24, I believe. Without this casual side quest, unofficial methodology, I don't know that there would be any reason for us to ever go to DaCosta Station, which is a shame. I mean, look at it. How beautiful is that? There's DaCosta. Dock. Alright, now we figure out where we're gonna go here. Get lined up for our not crash. There we go. Here we go. Right there. Say goodbye to DaCosta Station. Clock into the negative 10 FPA. Looks like we have a huge dog leg ahead of us. So negative 10. Now I could have done that in a combination burn if I thought about it and knew what to do, but I don't do that ever. I always do it this way. So then I just point south and handle this whole dogleg thing as a separate burn. That burn is going to take us all the way to where we need to have our burn that levels us off. There we go. Now we just get lined up for our level off, and we have cargo, but we're only at a minus 9.6. So we are okay, and we now perform our FPA correction burn. I don't know what you would call this. This is a powered re-entry burn. Normally you would just have one burn at your apoapsis that would set your periapsis to place you here automatically. But that's not what we did. Or if you're in a circular orbit, you could really do it anywhere. But you would just do one burn from the station. But I like this conservative approach. You know, we have the fuel. So pretty soon the air is going to be pulling us down so hard we won't be able to stay upright anymore. There it is. And our FPA is going to zero out right around, looks like 50 something. $53. That's right where we want to be. Alright, our FPA has zeroed out, and now we just kind of throw some trim on there. Once we calm down on our little bounce, we'll get our trim going. And we should be able to coast on in from here, gradually slowing down until we plop gently down right onto our destination. Gradually losing speed. This is gonna get kind of hot. That wasn't too bad.
TL01 craft, base 86 ground. Greetings, we see you on screen.
Okie dokie. Let's see what level we get to. I think we're still going to be stuck at 35, but we'll be pretty close to 36. And this is Rogue Mode 0 to 40. And actually the last number you're going to see is 39, because it'll never tick over to 40. It'll just say 39, and then it'll fill all the way up. But you'll never get to level 40. That was pretty close. So we are very close to level 36. Thank you very much.